How South Korea went from aid receiver to economic power. In 1953, South Korea was poorer than Ghana. The average Korean earned less than $100 a year. The country had no natural resources, no oil, no diamonds, just mountains and a coastline. Half the factories were destroyed. The roads didn't work. Inflation was eating whatever currency still existed. Today, South Korea is the 10th largest economy in the world. Samsung, Hyundai, K-pop. They export culture and semiconductors to countries that once pitied them. It took 70 years, and what happened in between isn't a miracle. It's a blueprint, one that makes economists very uncomfortable. Because South Korea didn't follow the rules everyone else was told to follow. Let's go back to 1945. Japan has just lost the war. Korea, which Japan had occupied for 35 years, is suddenly free. But freedom doesn't pay salaries. The peninsula is split in two. The Americans take the South, the Soviets take the North. And for the South, that means starting from less than zero. By 1950, war breaks out. 3 years of fighting leaves the South devastated. Infrastructure is rubble. Refugees flood the cities. Orphans sleep in the streets. The government depends entirely on American aid just to feed people. This is where most stories about poor countries stay, stuck in dependency, waiting for loans or investments or someone to come fix things. South Korea decided to do something different. But here's the thing, they didn't do it alone, and they didn't do it democratically. In 1961, a general named Park Chung-hee stages a coup. He's a military man with a simple idea. Survival means growth, and growth means exports. Not someday, now. So Park does something most economists at the time said was insane. He picks winners. The government decides which companies will get cheap loans, which industries will receive subsidized steel and electricity, which conglomerates, called chaebols, will be allowed to dominate entire sectors. If you make ships, the government helps you. If you make textiles, you get access to foreign currency. If you fail to meet export targets, the money stops. This is not a free market. It's state-directed capitalism, and it's brutally efficient. Samsung starts as a trading company, then moves into sugar refining, then electronics. Hyundai begins with construction, then cars, then shipbuilding. The government doesn't let them diversify randomly. It tells them what the country needs, and it rewards success with more power. By the 1970s and 1980s, South Korea is exporting wigs, textiles, and cheap electronics. It's not glamorous, but it's working. The economy grows at 8, 9, 10% a year for decades. Now, here's where it gets strange. Most developing countries were told by the World Bank and the IMF to open their markets, let foreign companies compete, remove subsidies, trust the invisible hand. South Korea did the opposite. It protected its domestic companies from foreign competition. It kept wages low. It banned labor unions. It censored the press when strikes threatened production. Workers were told their sacrifice was patriotic. And it was a dictatorship the entire time. Park Chung-hee ruled until 1979, when he was assassinated by his own intelligence chief. The next leader was also a general. Democracy didn't arrive until 1987. That's 26 years of authoritarian industrial policy. So, here's the uncomfortable truth. South Korea got rich under a system that violated almost every principle Western economists were preaching to the rest of the world. And it worked. But let's talk about the cost. Workers in the 1970s and 1980s put in 12, 14-hour days. Child labor was common. Safety regulations barely existed. Factory fires killed dozens at a time. If you protested, you were arrested. Sometimes worse. The chaebols became so powerful that they essentially controlled the government. Samsung alone accounts for a fifth of South Korea's GDP today. The top 5 chaebols control nearly 60% of the economy. That's not diversification, that's concentration. And when you concentrate that much power, strange things happen. In 1997, the Asian financial crisis hits. South Korea's currency collapses. The chaebols, bloated with debt and bad investments, start to fall. The government bails them out because letting them fail would mean letting the entire economy fail. The IMF steps in with a $58 billion rescue package, and suddenly, the same government that rejected free market orthodoxy for decades is forced to accept it. Companies are restructured, banks are privatized, the labor market is liberalized. South Korea survives, but barely. So, what actually explains the success? It's not just the government picking winners. Lots of governments try that and fail. It's not just hard work. Lots of countries have hard workers and stay poor. It's timing. South Korea industrialized during the Cold War when the United States needed an anti-communist success story in Asia. American aid poured in. American markets stayed open to Korean goods. The U.S. military bought Korean products and services. South Korea had a sponsor with deep pockets and geopolitical reasons to see it succeed. It's also education. South Korea made massive investments in literacy and technical training in the 1960s. By the 1980s, they had a population capable of moving from low-skill manufacturing to high-tech production. The workforce didn't just work hard, it got smarter. And its culture. Korea already had a Confucian tradition that emphasized education, hierarchy, and collective sacrifice. The government leveraged that, turned it into fuel. But here's what makes economists uncomfortable. You can't replicate those conditions. You can't just copy the model and expect the same results. Nigeria can't do what South Korea did in 1965. The global economy is different. The geopolitical landscape is different. And the World Bank won't let you run an authoritarian export-driven dictatorship anymore. So where does that leave us? South Korea is now a democracy. It has universal health care, high-speed internet everywhere. It's a cultural superpower. But it's also dealing with the legacy of its own success. Youth unemployment is rising. The birth rate is the lowest in the world. Household debt is among the highest. The chaebols still dominate, and breaking their grip seems politically impossible. Young Koreans call their country Hell Joseon, a reference to the rigid class system of the old Korean kingdom. The same drive that built the economy now crushes the people living in it. And the question nobody wants to ask out loud is this: did South Korea succeed because of its choices or in spite of them? Was the authoritarian model necessary or just convenient? Could they have grown this fast under democracy, with unions, with worker protections? We'll never know. What we do know is that South Korea is now held up as proof that poor countries can become rich, that development is possible, that the gap can be closed. But if you look closely at how they did it, the lesson isn't inspiring. It's that the path to prosperity might require sacrifices most societies aren't willing to make, and that the countries we hold up as success stories often succeeded by breaking the very rules we now insist everyone else follow. South Korea didn't play fair, it played smart. And maybe that's the only way it ever works.